For professional advice with a personal touch, consult FL Fuller Landau, Chartered Professional Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's Entrepreneur, presented by FL Fuller Landau. This is Josh Miller from FL. Dan is not with us this evening. He's feeling a little under the weather, so our thoughts go out to him as he gets through this little bug towards the end of the winter, is really the beginning of the spring. But that's okay. Let him get through it in good health, and we'll all be good. So welcome to today's Entrepreneur, a program about the entrepreneurial spirit that drives Quebec business. And this evening on the show tonight, we have Kim Holdbrook of Hands That See Massage. So this is basically a massage clinic that only has masseuses and masseurs that are visually impaired, that are essentially blind. So it's quite an interesting story. There's actually a really special human interest story behind it and how Kim got started. But of course, there's always the little bit of the business model that's got to work afterwards. So we'll get to that story shortly. And of course, at the end of the hour, the challenge for entrepreneurs this week, we're going to bring Micheline Maillet from FLN, and we're going to talk about training considerations. So basically, entrepreneurs and employers that have to really think about the training of their team and their aspects and everything that surrounds that. So that's coming up towards in the latter half of the hour. But first, as we do each week, there's no back and forth with Dan and I, but certainly some of the news that hit the papers and hit the online world, we'll get right into it. And I know that Montreal is really known for its gaming, for its online activity, for its tech knowledge. So there was an article in the Post today, actually, where there was talking about artificial intelligence being a two-edged sword. You know, as we know, and the budgets, the federal budget coming out on Wednesday, and the provincial budget next week on next Tuesday, the 28th. And, you know, there's always talk about jobs and saving jobs and what can we do to help the economy. Well, the artificial intelligence aspect in Montreal, I must say, is that double-edged sword, because it is a great new product, is a great new software, it's a great new technology. But the reality is it's going to probably cut some jobs. The whole point of artificial intelligence, like much technology today, is basically to gain efficiencies. So that's great, but will those efficiencies really help the economy in the long run? I think they always will. I think the long run always wins out, but the short term might be some of those efficiencies. This is essentially where the best tech ideas really lead to the incredible efficiencies. If you look at the Industrial Revolution, actually, they replaced entire job descriptions. Although at that point, the workers were getting some higher skilled labor or highly skilled aspects of their jobs. And now with this artificial intelligence, what will it replace? I don't know. Elon Musk, of course, has to speak about it because that's what he does about this future technology. And he actually estimated that artificial intelligence, AI, could replace 12 to 15% of the global workforce in the next 20 years. That's quite a bit, especially when, again, governments and everybody's trying to create new jobs to stimulate the economy. But of course, technology can't be held. You look at Uber. Uber has created a great efficiency, created lower cost rides, better efficiency, use of your handhelds. We spoke last week about medical apps that really help, minimize the time that you have to take. You have to displace yourself, creating a little bit more productivity, and maybe creating the need for one less person or maybe one less half person. You have robo-investing. We've spoken a little bit of this on the program too, all along the lines of technology, artificial intelligence, the chatbots that we spoke about. All that is taking away from jobs that somebody's doing. Now, hopefully, and what we've all seen at least in the last decade or two, is so many jobs that didn't exist 20 years ago that exist today. So I'm sure that will continue. But all to say is that artificial intelligence is a great part of the economy, but definitely a two-edged sword depending on what side you're looking at. There was another article in the Globe and Mail, and this was entitled, "Now It's the Time for Canadian Tech to Go East." And of course, East means Asia. So Finance Minister Bill Moreau, he has a council of economic advisors. And basically what they're telling him, what it came out in the article, is that they really encouraged Canada to boost trade with Asia, notably, of course, China, Japan, and India. but really in the tech sector. Really, that's where I guess they're trying to go where the money is. Yes, there's one thing, you can go to Silicon Valley. There's no question the technology, in Canada and the US have had long-standing relations. We all know that. But is it really tapped already? Is there far more opportunity out east? You all have heard that I travel to Hong Kong and China times a year. There is, I can assure you, there is absolutely opportunity to spare out there, and it's probably even much bigger. I know it's much bigger dollars, and they don't necessarily look at the smaller deals and smaller aspects. Now, some might say, well, it's much easier to deal with the U.S. There's no question, but if you can think beyond the 49th parallel, and you can get to actually go into Asia, there are big benefits. Now, it doesn't come without a lot of work. There's no question it's a little bit more complicated. There's no question that you really have to meet people face to face. You really have to plan ahead. It won't be one meeting alone that's going to do it. It's going to be several. But if you put in that effort, then I think there's absolutely great things that can happen. Certainly in the fintech area, financial technical services, really big, really growing as the wealth grows in China. Lots of opportunity. And I will tell you that our Canadian government, for the few things that you can knock them for doing, their consul general offices in Asia are actually spectacular. You look them up, whether it's in Hong Kong or otherwise, dealt with them personally, and they are pro-business. They really go out of their way to help. So as we continue with some of the news of the week, there was one that I read in the Globe and Mail. It was a couple of weeks ago, and it was about a furniture retailer. And this story, it's about Rove Furniture, and they started about 5-6 years ago, Rove Concepts, and they were doing well, and they grew a lot. But really the challenge here, the message behind this article is really about what do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to be to your consumer? Who do you want to portray and represent? Do you want to be high quality or low quality? Do you want to be high price or low price? Do you want to be all about delivery and service or only about cheap product? And this Rove Concepts really was trying to eliminate the middleman, but in doing so, the furniture business is quite special because there's big product, and when you're making product overseas and shipping it, that's a lot of containers, that's a lot of transportation and logistics. We already know that furniture can take many, many weeks. If anybody's ever gone to order a couch, it could take 6, 8, 12 weeks before you get something. So there's a whole logistics component about it. And that's the 2 points I wanted to focus on. It's not so much the fact that it was a furniture retailer. It was more the fact that when you're operating your business, sometimes your main product isn't the main focus of your business. Sometimes you really need to focus on the ancillary parts, whether it be logistics, whether it be transportation, whether it be delivery service, whether it be training your people. We're going to talk about training towards the end of the show. Whether it be training your sales staff or your delivery staff to always produce the exact same product every week and every time, so that you minimize on the complaints. The last thing we'll address just before we get to the show, and it's 7:14, so almost getting there on CJAD 800, before we get to Kim Holdbrook of Hands That See Massage on tonight's show. We spoke about tips for perfecting your email etiquette last week. We only hit a few of them, but I really wanted to touch on a couple more. And there's so many great things that you should know to do and not to do, but I'll just list a couple quickly. Really discuss public matters. Private stuff, unless you're not getting hacked, don't really try not to do that much. Exclamation points and capital letters, really, know that when people are reading it, you could be screaming, or you could, just want people when they read it to know really what you have to get. Be clear in the subject line. I think that's hugely important. And I think one of the things that is really forgotten sometimes these days is just pick up the phone. Sometimes, believe it or not, an email is not the best form of communication. Picking up the phone can absolutely be much better. So we thank you for listening. And there's so many more email etiquette, but we'll move on from there. Anyhow, as right after the break, 17th break, we're going to come back with Kim Holdbrook of Hands That See Massage.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult FL Fuller Landau, Chartered Professional Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
Welcome back to today's Entrepreneur, a program about the entrepreneurial spirit that drives Quebec business. This is Josh Miller from FL Fuller Landau. Dan Delmar is not here this evening. He's a little under the weather, but we wish him well. And in studio, we have with us tonight Kim Holdbrook of Hands That See Massage. Welcome, Kim.
Hi, Josh. Thank you.
And as we do, the very first question's really the easiest one and the best one, and the one that will really get our listeners to understand what you do, even though the title in and of itself kind of displays it. But Kim, maybe you can tell us exactly what is Hands That See Massage. What do you do?
Sure. Hands That See Massage is a massage studio. What makes us a little bit different is that all of the licensed massage therapists are visually impaired. So we are 6 massage therapists at this point. We have 3 massage. We have a fully accessible building. We're located in Côte Saint Luc, just on Westminster, and we're just going into our. We do all types of massage: Swedish-based therapeutic massage, deep tissue, pregnancy, sports, and so on. Therapist.
Now you started this. You said about 4 years ago. Where did the idea come from? Like, what was the trigger point for you to start your own massage clinic?
I'm obviously visually impaired. I've been blind for about 16 years now. I was fully sighted before, and I started massaging. It's been about 12 or 13 years. So after I lost my vision, after rehabilitating, I started to take I've been working for quite a few years. I was working from home, and I was also working from a pretty famous spa downtown on Crescent. Decided to go out on my own. Felt that it was time to open up my own space.
Was that because you was there any particular reason, like you enjoyed working with your clientele there, but you felt it wasn't necessarily accessible? Like, what was the reason that you felt you had to go on your own versus continue to work for somebody else?
You know, I developed such a clientele and the confidence to do it on my own that I feel that I loved working at the spa also. I really learned a lot there. And working from home is a different thing also. So having clients come to always convenient either. So I thought, well, I'm going to get myself a place. And then I thought, well, why not expand a little bit? I started to do some research and realized that I couldn't find any other blind therapists really in the city, and to work with my peers, to give them the space to work with me and for me.
Did you find there were many visually impaired massage therapists out there that didn't really have a home?
Yes and no. I don't find there's a lot out there, and the ones that are working for me now, actually, they found me. So through word of knowing that we were open. I guess the same way that when I first got, my degree, and then I wanted to find others out there. Doing the research, I realized that there was nothing in Montreal, let alone across Canada, and where I found that it was quite popular was actually in Asia. There, it's something that automatically, if they know that someone's going to be losing their vision, they train them. They have buildings where the studio, it's all blind therapists working. Now, I wanted to bring that to Montreal, really.
I think that's great, but I think the part of the really interesting story is you getting, you mentioned that you kind of got over your fear, you got this self-confidence to do it on your own, but then there's, of course, if you go back 16 years, you have that whole episode where you lost your vision almost overnight, and when we come back from the break, we'll kind of explore you getting over that fear first, and then moving on to your own business. You're listening to Today's Entrepreneur at 7:23.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult FL Fuller Landau, Chartered Professional Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
Coming up on 727, welcome back to Today's Entrepreneur, inspiring stories from outstanding business people. My name is Josh Miller from FL Fuller Landau, and really this is quite an inspiring story. This is a story about a visually impaired, Kim Holdbrook, who's here from Hands That See Massage, literally or almost overnight became blind. And I think that's the next question, because it's kind of an incredulous and very inspiring story. So Kim, I guess I'll ask you, not to drudge up bad memories, but of course you overcame the fears, is what happened? You could see one day and the next morning, like, what happened?
Yeah, I was fully sighted about 17 years ago, and then started having problems with my optic nerves. I've been diagnosed with idiopathic optic neuritis, which basically means they don't know why I develop lesions on my optic nerves. They're never able to tell me, okay, this is what you have and you're going to go blind, you know? To be honest, it wasn't easy. It took me several years. I thought I would never, work again, go outside, or I didn't think I'd be able to do anything again, to tell you the truth.
And you had your daughter with you.
Yeah, my daughter was about 7 years old at that point. It was my inspiration. So, I mean, I had to be able to start taking care of her, at least, be able to walk her to the bus stop. And I think that my major fear when I lost my vision was, how am I going to go out? How is it even possible? But thankfully, with mobility training, with the MAB baby steps, I mean, I started walking to the corner and then around the block. And I mean, now I go around the world, So
Did you ever get to a point where you wanted to give up? Or you had your little girl and that was never an issue?
I never wanted to give up. No, I had to do it. I had to move on. I had to be productive again. So conquering that fear, walking out of the door, for me was a major fear. And I conquered that.
Quickly? Did that happen quickly, or did that take a long time?
No, it took a while, for sure. But now I figure, look, if I can walk across a busy street and I'm blind and I don't see anything, well, then I can do anything then, can't I? So,
you're probably safer than the person walking and texting on their phone. You're probably paying more attention.
Yeah. And I do have a guide dog now also. So that's been a great help. But I think overcoming those fears when I lost my vision, and to see that when I was knocked down, I had lost everything. When I lost my vision, I lost my job. I lost everything, really. And I had to rebuild myself. So when it came to make the decision to move out and to open up my studio and doing I've never done that before. I know massage, that's my thing, but I wanted to take it to a next level. And by having other people work with me, and hiring staff and everything, it shot me into the whole business world.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult FL Fuller Landau, Chartered Professional Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
It's 7:36. Welcome back to Today's Entrepreneur. Inspiring stories, and this week it's really an inspiring story from outstanding business people as we speak with Kim Holdbrook of Hands That See Massage. Kim is blind and she is running her own massage clinic. And we were talking about overcoming fear before, but once you've overcome that fear, you got to start your business. Now, Kim was working for other massage clinics, and she came back and decided, you know what, time to start my own. I have my own client base. I pretty much think I can do it on my own. So I'm going to turn to Kim and kind of say, Kim, you made that decision to go on your own. Now what? What's your first step? If you haven't run a business before and you're visually impaired, I mean, all these things you have to do between business plans and financing and all that stuff. What do you do as your first step? Or three?
Good question. Exactly. What do you do? Start doing research and start making phone calls, I guess, was the first thing for me. Finding locations. Where would I like to have the studio? And financing. And of course, you can't do anything without a business plan.
So how do you do a business plan if you can't see a computer screen, or you can't, you have to, of course, engage help? Who do you ask to help you? How do you find that trustworthy person that's not going to take advantage of you?
Yeah, that was a challenge because I had no clue what to do, for a business plan. I was always involved with Yes Montreal, which is an organization that helps entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. Started off with them, happened to be on their mailing list, and then I got an email from the John Molson School that the students had to make a business plan. So they thankfully willingly accepted me and my ideas, and from there I actually went to another organization I got involved with, which is Quebec. Mm-hmm. So this was the only organization that I actually found that would help somebody with a disability.
What do they do exactly, Sphere Quebec?
So they have a program set up, which is a couple years old, to help people who have a disability who want to start their own business, who want to be. So we needed to tweak the plan a little bit from the school. I got help then from Sage Quebec, along with Sphere Quebec, so working with everybody and got the business. Quebec was great because they actually helped me. I guess in a way they gave me an allowance for the first year of the business to help start up. They didn't give me startup money, but just an allowance. And they also helped to purchase any technical aids that I might have needed because
So you have a business plan that you've created, or certainly it's your vision, and they're putting it on paper. Now, where like you then you go to a bank, you walk into a bank and say, "Here's my business plan." Did that work for you?
No, actually, I never went to the bank. I did try to get funding from other organizations, but it just turned out that for a lot of the grants and programs that were out there.
Had nothing to do with the fact that you were visually impaired.
They tell me it was my age. So a lot of the free organizations, a lot of help from them help that I basically had to pay for, like with Stage Quebec. That was part of.
Now, I would imagine that technology has to be your friend, and that maybe 17 years ago or 16, 17 years ago, when you first became blind, is very different than today with technology. How has that helped you and your business?
Oh, yeah, it's very different right now. And I don't think I'd be able to do what I do running the business. I rely a lot upon Apple. I had to develop a special form. My health form is on the iPad. So when my clients come, they fill up the form on the iPad. It's then sent to me via email, and that's how I can read it. So you're not going to find a lot of paper in the studio. There's, everything.
That's good for the environment too.
Yes, yeah. Yeah. And also for my calendar, I have it on my iPhone, it gets sunk to the calendar on the computer for the receptionist and everything. So those are two major, and also actually my payment method. I have Square, the app Square on my iPad. And because the iPad is accessible, it has a voiceover option, I'm able to use the Square. Because I also I contacted all of the major companies out there, that deal with all the credit card payments and debit cards. I would not be able to use any of them.
Do you find that often that certain websites or services are not readily accessible to you, whether it's government websites or elsewhere, and that you have to find alternatives?
Yeah, there's a lot of websites, especially the government ones, even just to register my business. I wasn't able to do it. It wasn't accessible. And they wouldn't, let me come down in person to do it. Everything had to be done online. I had to hire people to help me fill out all those.
About location for a minute. Your location, your Westminster and Côte Saint-Luc Road. Why that location? Was it hard to find that location? Did somebody help you find that location? Did you know about it before you lost your sight? Did it exist?
No, actually, I wasn't familiar with that area at all before I lost my sight. I've always grew up in NDG. I wanted to stay in the area. So just, driving around, looking in the paper, and then came to that building. So, again, what drew me to it was that it was accessible. Because, for people who are blind, yes, the elevators have Braille and they talk, but it's also wheelchair accessible. And a majority of my clients, come to me wheelchairs or walkers or canes, so stairs is really not an option.
We're talking with Kim Holdbrook of Hands That See Massage. Now, Kim, there's a lot of entrepreneurs that have advisors. They have financial advisors and business advisors. I believe you have a visual advisor. Tell us about that and how that person has helped you.
Yeah. So we've made up that phrase on our own, visual advisor. Well, I really needed somebody in a massage room. I've got it down pat. I know what to do. But when it came to the website and, Facebook and all the media stuff, it was all really new to me. And the last time I saw a website was 17 years ago. So I needed someone to really be my eyes, I guess, and to tell me what's going on. What color scheme should we do? Also for our flyers and everything like that. So she's really my eye for all that visual stuff.
Was it tough to find that person?
No, actually it wasn't. No, I had a close friend that started helping me with that. A few friends. I've got a few set of eyes out there helping me. So
now let's talk human resources. You have a whole team around you. You have the masseuses, the masseurs. Your daughter, I believe, helps you out. When you're hiring, what do you look for when you hire?
When I'm hiring a massage therapist or a receptionist?
Either.
Well, definitely a therapist. They have to know what they're doing. They have to be licensed by the time they come to me.
Do you test them?
So, yeah. I don't really, their CV, of course, I look at their CV, but this really is that, they give me a massage. That's their first test. So, and
about like a receptionist, like somebody that can see, I presume you have to kind of also give them or I guess hire them, not necessarily train them, although we are going to talk about training after the break, but I guess is also I guess somebody needs to understand the environment.
The receptionists are sighted, so they're kind of working into our world where all the therapists are blind. All very comfortable with the studio. We have it set up the way that we need to work, which is really minor adaptations, just that, everything has its place, right? So receptionists kind of have to follow along with that. And
and there's no question there's training that's involved at all levels. So with that in mind and training, we're going to come back after the break with Micheline Maillet, and they're going to talk about, Micheline's going to talk with us about training considerations that entrepreneurs have to keep in mind with all their team members. We'll hear a bit about training from you, Kim, and your people, and we're looking forward to that. And of course, your one piece of advice for today's entrepreneur coming up towards the end of the show.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult FL Fuller Landau, Chartered Professional Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
Welcome back to today's Entrepreneur. We're coming up on 7:50. Inspiring stories from outstanding business people, and clearly an inspiring story tonight with Kim Holdbrook of Hands That See Massage. And in about 8 minutes or so, we'll have her one piece of advice for today's Entrepreneur. But now we bring into the program Micheline Maillet, who is one of our HR specialists at P-Visio by Fuller Landau, by FL.
Hi, Josh.
Welcome, Micheline, to the program again. And we're talking about training tonight. We're talking about training considerations, employers, entrepreneurs that, kind of want to get things, want their team members, their staff to really do things, usually within the right set of rules. So tell us what, when somebody's come to you and says, I got to think training for my employees. What are the first challenges that come to mind?
Yeah, I mean, the first challenge is obviously kind of defining what does the person need to know, so a lot of times, I mean, the biggest example is any new employee starting in a company. A lot of the time, especially in small, medium-sized business, the new person starts and they just basically sit them down next to somebody who maybe knows or has done that job before and says, okay, just show them everything that you know. So it's not really, it doesn't have to be super structured necessarily, but to add a bit more structure to it so the person kind of, sees where they're going with it, what they're going to learn.
So things don't get forgotten.
Exactly. And so there's a certain standard of quality that's shown to the other person, a certain steps that everybody knows so that nothing falls through the cracks. And it's a great integration to a new employee also. It shows, that you have a company that knows where you're going, that you're somewhat organized. So it's all about the first impression that the business gives as well.
No question. And I would imagine, Kim, in your business, not only is it training just to deal with customers, but it's training if it's a receptionist, like you were talking about earlier, and a sighted person, how do they deal with you as a blind person and the other masseurs, masseuses that are also blind? I guess training is an important aspect for you as well in your business.
yes, it is definitely. We have our phone protocols and code of conducts and things like that too. But then, yes, they have to learn to adapt into our world. That sighted person is stepping into little things like, if you're going to take a message, you can't just hand me a piece of paper with the phone number, But receptionists have done that. They forget. They don't realize that we can't see. That's not the way that we'll do things, There's someone sitting in the reception area, and I come out and I go to sit down on the person, which has happened a few times. You have to let me know somebody's in the reception area. So kind of be the eyes of the reception also. So yeah, to deal with the visual impairment, there's always a little...
And do you suggest or do you think formalizing and writing down these training programs are important?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like I said, it doesn't necessarily have to be a 50-page manual, but to have some kind of, maybe it requires a 50-page manual, that's fine. But, to have at least some kind of protocol set out of, what the skills the person's going to learn, what programs do they need to, like softwares, for example, do they need to know? People do take things for granted. I mean, this is a perfect example of people taking things for granted, but there's other more typical things like how you answer the phone in any company, really. Some people worked at a more casual company and the company they're going to work at is more formal. So maybe the way they speak to clients doesn't fit in the culture. And if you're new, you don't always know that right away.
And then, of course, there's the characteristics of the team member or the staff as well that you have to kind of take into consideration. And when we come back from the break, we'll chat a little bit more about training special employees, whether they have ADHD or what have you, to get the most out of it. And of course, Kim's one piece of advice for today's entrepreneur, it's 7:53.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult FL Fuller Landau, Chartered Professional Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
It's 7:56. Welcome back to today's Entrepreneur, a program about the entrepreneurial spirit that drives Quebec business. We're here chatting. We'll have Kim's one piece of advice in a moment, but we're here chatting with Micheline Maillet, Human Resource Specialist, FL Fuller Landau, PVisio. And we were talking about training. And we last left, we were coming back with, Micheline, what if you have certain employees that either have attention deficit disorder, or they need certain, do you have to kind of target your training style to call it your student or your staff?
Yeah, I mean, there's certain tendencies in the market, I would say. I mean, today, trainings are getting shorter and shorter. So I don't know if it's, because people are attached to their phones, or there's just a lot of distractions. But today, a lot of places are, having training in segments of less than 15 minutes. So if you look at like online training, for example, often they'll have maybe a 2-hour course or a half-day course, but it's broken up into like 10-minute segments that the person can watch when they have a chance.
Or you kind of suggest that they leave their device at the door.
Yes, that could be a possibility too, but very, very difficult. You don't want people going into a phone withdrawal during the session and not not listening. So, or there's even there's even trainings that involve mobile applications. So I've seen that before too. Trainings where they'll ask people a question and they have to reply to like a survey or questions on their phone. So they kind of integrate the phone into the training.
Interactive training that must stick better than just kind of talking and listening.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, today people say if I'm just going to sit there and listen, it might as well be online, and I can do it from the comfort of my desk or comfort of my home. So today the key is, especially if you want people to be there in person, to try to find ways to make it as interactive and fun. And it's easier also for people to integrate the learning into their everyday lives when they can help share how that, how it would apply and ask questions and that type of thing.
Like everything else, you got to think ahead before you actually take on a task or something in any business. Thank you very much, Micheline, for those thoughts.
Thank you.
And as we approach the last moment of the show, as we do every week, we'll turn to Kim and ask you, Kim, what would be your one piece of advice for today's entrepreneur?
That if you love what you do, if you follow your passion, you'll always succeed. And also that fear is really false evidence that appears real. I think a lot of people, I know because it for me in the past, but once you've overcome that, I think that you can really pull anything.
I think that's great. And my little takeaway, other than, of course, emphasizing that fear aspect once you get over it, is realizing that you actually can accomplish things. It's realizing that, and if you surround yourself with the right people and you have build that self-confidence, that absolutely anything can happen. Kim, thank you so much for being on the program with us.
Thank you.
And thank you to Micheline as well for all that
you.
Great talk on training. Next week, we have a return guest, actually, Legal Logic. Jamie Benizzi from Legal Logic. We're going to get an update 4 years later after he was on the show last. We're coming up to 8 o'clock and CJAD News with Kelly Lepari. Thank you.